Hey, welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations. Today, we're going to recap our game from Thursday, December 22nd, the last game before Christmas. Our adventurers find themselves deep in enemy territory of the Misty Forest. This heavy fog all around them. They've just battled a group of the hungry, and it has taken their toll. Glowing has fallen, and they're going crazy with the grief of the fallen comrade. Two of them, Olak and Christiana, have retreated, only to return with saying that there's people coming from down the path. They've taken heavy damage. One of them has fallen. More enemy on the way. What are they going to do? Stay with me and we'll find out. So, our group had just battled the angry at the Mistvale Lake and focused their energy on one, as many more of these angry, monstrous creatures were starting to come at them. And they wisely retreated down the path. Now, this was the fourth of 5 Sorrowsworn creatures that they needed to kill before the entrance to Neronvain and Chuth's lair would be revealed to them. So therefore, and this was the angry were supposedly the most difficult of the 5. There's one left, the hungry. They had gone down the path in search of this hungry, and eventually they came to a point where they had heard battling, 2 creatures battling in somewhere in the mist beyond the vegetation, and glowing as Grogart sticks his head in there and releases his fiery breath, killing an owlbear and damaging a handful of the hungry and starting the battle. And this battle went back and forth, and these hungry pack a mean punch as their resistance to most damage, most typical damage, even from magical sources. And they have this grapple and punch him 3 attacks. It was just crazy damage. And Strider fell, but he was brought back up and protected by Barkworm. And this was all 3 weeks ago. And then finally this week, at the end of 3 weeks ago, Gloin had fallen, and even as Grolgark had damage had succumbed as he fell and was doing death saves, and because there was nothing else to attack, these wretched that were attracted to dead bodies piled onto Gloin and did 2 of the death saves. Failed the 2 of the death saves for Grolgark / Gloin, and then Gloin rolled for the 3rd one and failed, and he died. Gloin died, and as he died, as Gloin's body, his spirit rises from his body, and it goes into the darkness. He sees a light. He sees light, and he floats toward the light, and as he gets closer, he realizes this light isn't the light of a Shangri-La that he might want, but it's actually the eyes of the dark god that had given him the ability to become Groggark. And this dark god, vampire, as it were, says, "You've returned, and I offer you a chance to return to the mortal plane as my servant as Plasmire, the blood dragon. We will bring upon the Toril and the Sword Coast unleashing of the undead that it's never seen, and the undead will rule again as vampires raised to rule the world under your guidance. Do you accept my offer?" And Gloin, as lawful good, lawful good, turns down the offer. "No, I won't do that." And he says, and Vampire says, "Fine, then I cast you into Avernus, the first of the 9 hells." And Gloin finds himself in this barren landscape full of rocks and lava, hot. I describe it, it's basically, you think of hell, right? But off in the distance, this blotted sun is out, but in the rising from land is some moat of earth that is chained to the ground in this hellscape. You see motes of fire flying around, demons floating around, and Gloin leans up against a rock and puts his hand in his eyes, and hands it on his head, and he curls up and he starts concentrating in frustration and of how did he get here. And he realizes that as he closes his eyes, he can see his body on the mortal plane. As he looks around, and as he's laying there, these wretched creatures are attacking and eating, devouring him. As they feast on his body, he looks over and he sees his companion protected by some globe, as Barkworm and Strider are right there, and he sees it and he pulls himself up. But as he does, he feels that he doesn't have control of his physical body. As the apparition, as a shade of glowing sits up, he realizes he is a spirit, he is a ghost. And in frustration, he lets out this wail that does a pulse of psychic energy, and it takes down the wretched creatures around, dropping, eyes going across, and blood coming from the corners of their eye sockets as these wretched creatures fall. But his companions as well have to make this saving throw, and they take some amount of psychic damage as well. And as he does it, he looks up and he sees his companions have taken some damage, and he's, oh no, as Grolgark and Strider's mouth drop as they look at Gloin rising, the specter of Gloin, the ghost of Gloin standing there. But as they do, Olak and Christiana are coming up the path, and they've both been hit by this psychic blast. It's like, what's going on? And Christiana gets intrigued by the sign of Gloin and goes up and starts taking notes, pulling out, describing it. It's like she is preoccupied with this, with everything going on. But Olak raises the warning that, hey, we have more people coming. We need to be taken care of. And so with that, Barkworm drops his globe of invulnerability and rises and casts a tiny hut for them to go get sanctuary in, and most of them go in there, and they don't have time. They don't have time to take Gloin's body, but they do. Strider takes the wreath of flowers off of Gloin's body and hands it, thrusts it at Christiana, so she can maybe get this protection of the wreath, or this lei that she's wearing, that they've been wearing. Most of them are wearing. They all get in this tiny hut except for Gloin. Gloin in the shade, he has this natural ability to hide. Ducks into a tree and watches as a group of dragon cultists come up. They find this dead body, and then they're followed by their leader, this female elf, shade, dark skin, white blotted eyes, and this on this horse with a ghostly mane, as she slides off and casts Speak with Dead over Gloin, and draws him in and asks him some questions about, how did he die? What is his name? Where are his companions? Where are they? How many? And as we look at the Speak with Dead, Gloin was not compelled to tell the truth, but he did a really good job role-playing it, as he did share his name and how he died, but he didn't really reveal where. He said his companions scattered, and which was not entirely true. And as Zias, this female elf, released the spirit, she sat down and began a ritual. And as she was doing this ritual that the Barkworm could recognize was going to be a detect magic ritual, Grolgark couldn't have this, and so Gloin turned into his new ghost, his new dragon form, which is a ghost dragon, different than his old gold dragon. Different and better and different. In some ways better, some ways not as better. But the spectral version of a ghostly dragon, ghostly bone dragon as he came out, and he releases a terrifying breath. Not that maybe looks like fire, but this 90-foot cone, and it hits all of them, and all of these 7 cultists, and the one Ziaz who was in a trance doing her ritual casting of detect magic, and so he. Grolgark releases his breath, takes out 4 of the cultists, and terrifies Ziaz and her horse as they are frozen and paralyzed with fear. They had taken the damage, and with that, with them being paralyzed, made easy pickings. Now on the second save, the horse that was named Tolgroth, and I didn't get to saying that, but Tolgroth, this horse, on their turn, on the cultist's turn, the remaining cultists ran for it. Tolgroth made its save, and disappeared and was sunken into a pocket of Ziaz. But then Ziaz still didn't pass her save, and which let her be easy pickings for Grolgark, the ghostly bone dragon, to come and do her in, taking her out. So with her down, and the rest of them in this tiny hut, as they can't see, it's beyond their vision, but they could hear all this going on. They hear, and Grolgark says that the witch is dead. The evil witch, the witch is dead. as the battle was done, and as they do this, as she'd fallen, one of those wretched creatures run up to the body, but then stops short and doesn't attack it. But that's enough for Grolgark again to do and kill that last wretched, but give him a little bit of a hint that these wretched aren't attacking the cultists. And with that, a handful of them, I think it was Ruckus finally came out of his container, and let's see, Ruckus and Christiana and Strider and Grolgark / Gloin began investigating the bodies. And in the bodies, the most significant thing they found, two things of notice, was one was an ivory figurine of a black horse. And the second thing that was of interest was these skull pendants that they each had, they were wearing. And they kind of start to figure out that those pendants may be giving them some sort of protection. And so Ruckus grabs one and puts it in his pocket, and they all return back to the tiny hut where Olak was preparing a heroic feast. And as that was going on, though, as they were investigating the body, before they could get back in the hut, another one of those hungry returns. And this one is not the same, or if it were, it has healed itself, and it attacked. And as it attacked, the gang all surrounded now. It's one of these big tough guys they with the packs of a huge punch. And Ruckus is there this time, though. There's quite a bit of difference. He's quite a tanky in his were-shark form. He's very, very tanky, and he goes in. But as Ruckus confronts this the hungry, for some reason, won't attack him, but instead attacks Strider in bear form and does massive damage. Now, I don't know if everyone realized how much damage Strider in bear form soaked up from the group. So you had Christiana from the back shooting it with her crossbow, and Ruckus doing his damage, and Strider was doing some damage also, but he was soaking up the damage as this hungry was pounding on him. The hungry couldn't grapple him because this bear is huge, a large creature. And also, one of the abilities of Gloin / Grolgark is this create specter ability. And with a fallen creature, Gloin can raise a specter out of it, only one at a time. And they're only, I don't know, a specter is what, level 2, level 1, something like that. So it has this extra little thing he can control, and the Spectre in there doing its damage, and Grolgark doing. Now, in addition to all of his ghostly dragons, he did retain his cantrips. So he has his cantrips, his base level attacks, and then he has a handful, he has many abilities on top of it. Now, this was a homebrew ghost I gave Gloin Leonard. So and basically I went through anything that was kind of ghostly in the monster manual. I started pulling out abilities and I gave it to Gloin. Now Gloin, I mean, he's hanging out with level 11 characters, so he needed some abilities that were on par with that. Now I also said with that though, the rest of the regular people, they'll be able to level up eventually, but until Gloin's returns into his physical form, he will not be able to level up. Now, returning to that storyline, a couple things in the dialogue, and Leonard did a fantastic job role-playing this. In that dialogue, Leonard Gloin revealed that he returned his body because his unfinished business of protecting the world from the return of Tiamat and the return of dragons, until that's resolved, he will not be settled. And also kind of alluded to that he is in this first of 9 hells of Vernus, and that for him to return to the mortal plane, he would have to somehow be rescued from the first of these 9 hells. And so how they'll do that, I don't know. If they'll do that, I don't know. So we'll have to see. But as we are still on path to prevent the rise of Tiamat, and we are going to investigate Neronvain and Chuth to see if they have this green dragon mask. We're on that path. But we have to resolve, we have to get there first, and the party has just killed the 5th of the Sorrowsworn. And now, but they are hurt. They're in damage. And through this battle with this Hungry, though, they do piece together that they're getting some protection from that pendant. And during that time, after that battle, they all return to the tiny hut, and they start to partake in this feast and talk about it and take a short rest. Now, remember, we just said it was like 2 o'clock when they were doing this, and as they're taking this heroic feast and taking the short rest, I said at the end of the day, it was 3 p.m. I've also reminded them that they can only have one long rest in a 24-hour period, and to my mind, that means they can't not begin their next long rest until 10 p.m. So that means they have 7 hours to span here and figure out what we're doing. Now, they might be able to spend that time in a tiny hut. Fine. But there's creatures out and about. So in that time, after I believe, after heroic feast, after a short rest, and if you haven't done it, roll it up and take the benefits of that. They went out and they retrieved the pendant from the rest of. They did notice during their investigation that each of the cultists had this pendant, this dragon pendant, the skull pendant. They each had one of those. So they each grabbed one and each took one and each put it on their clothing. So we'll have to see how that helps them. And so now when we start the next time, we'll have to see, how do you spend that? How do they spend that 7 hours? Do they just sit tight and try to rest in this tiny hut and hope that nothing finds them, hope that they don't get discovered? Or do they do something different? And what did we do with the bodies? What did they do with the bodies? There is quite the battleground at this path, right? We did talk about they brought in Gloin's body, and it's a good idea to go through his stuff. Now, I did say that the magical properties of any of the items he have been lost, but physical properties such as the mithril breastplate or a diamond, they are still there, and they are absolutely retrievable. I said the potions that he had on him lost their potency, or any spell scrolls would have been lost to him, as that would have gone with him. That would be with Gloin in Avernus. So we can go through those items and we can figure out who has what. That is something we can do in between sessions, I would hope, and so we can do that. Finally, I think that's it. That's what happened last time. And so next we meet, we have to talk about we were getting to, what are we going to do with all this mess, right? We have all these dead wretched, all these dead hungry bodies. We do have cultist bodies now without the protection of the pendants. We have Ziaz without the protection of the pendant. And And so certainly that's going to attack more of those wretched creatures, and have to see what happens. But that's where we're going to start, unless they're probably at some point in their after their short rest, and they've gathered this at some period, not too long after they've collected those pendants, that those wretched are attracted, and they start coming through the woods and feasting on those dead bodies. So we'll have to see how the party reacts when they get back in 2 weeks, as we rejoin Dave's Imaginations presents Dark Queen Ascension, The Fallen. Can't wait. See you in 2 weeks. Until then, take care.